Well, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. Renee, please show all board members present except for Ms. Goki. And let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, I need to start out with the item number D, the approval of the agenda. And do we have any modifications to that?
Yes, Board, tonight we have two modifications to the agenda. First of all, we have an addendum to the personnel report. And secondly, we have the Plasco track presentation. We'd like to move that forward. It's toward the back of the agenda. We'd like to move it to just after the gifts to buildings.
A motion to accept.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Satterley and Ms. Kraft. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? 6-0. Okay. Dr. Mellon, we have no public comments tonight on agenda items?
No, sir.
All right. Next item is the consent agenda. Looks like we have 5 items there. Motion to accept. Thank you, Mr. Satterley.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, 6-0. Thank you. Moving on to gifts to buildings. Mr. Satterley, will you do the honor here?
Absolutely, yes. It's already up there. We always normally bring this up, and it looks like Charlestown High School had, from insulated roof rent, $4,400. The high school band boosters, $1,200. Gotta love the jail, $1,350. And New Washington State Bank, that wasn't meant to be. I worked there, $3,500. Looks like we got $11,180 again. We appreciate the community every time. There's always something. So we thank everybody. Motion to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley. Thank you, Mr. White. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, 6-0. Thank you. All right, Ms. Strait, good welcome, and we are anxious to hear your presentation. So we know you have big things going on tonight, so we'll go ahead and get started.
So the presentation will be short and sweet. Plasco track, just following up, you know, it was a big purchase and a new program addressing the tardy situation. We had many students in the halls, and we've implemented or into full implementation, and so here's where we are. First, the goals and the expectations. We wanted to have students in class more of the time and out of the hallways less, you know, in classrooms, reinforcing their responsibility to be in class on time, increasing the time that teachers have for instruction by decreasing the time they spend on administrative tasks that were associated with student tardies, and coming up that'll be a little clearer, and overall improve the school safety and the culture. So before we had the Plasco track, and I'll probably summarize on that side, but the students, within the first 5 minutes after the bell rang, they went to class without a pass, and the teacher was the one responsible for letting them in, marking the tardy, seeing what number of tardy that was for that student, then following their plan of discipline, 1, 2, 3 warnings, call home, you know, letter, assign a detention, then refer, whatever that was, to the assistant principal. And there was no way to track if a kid was tardy. You could be tardy 7 times in a day, but that's just 1 per teacher. It could take quite a few tardies before an administrator was alerted to that. And like there's an example, 3 days if the student's tardy to every class, that's 21 tardies before. That probably isn't even action to an administrator. And the administrators are attendance workers. They weren't involved until the teacher made the referral. Now, whenever the bell rings, teachers close their door, lock them, and students have to go. There are 3 different places where they can go to get their tardy pass to be admitted. and you'll have a picture of that coming up. But the tardies accrue throughout the day, so they don't have that freebie go through a whole day. If they're tardy the third time, it's third warning, and they may have a lunch detention in one day. So it's, yes, every period counts along the way. The administrators and the attendance workers are handling all of the tardy procedures now because, you know, it's all tracked through the program. The data collection and the tracking has been simplified because of that, and the tardy policy is consistent now for all kids, all classes. It's not a matter of, you know, it's much easier for a teacher to just close the door and say that's the policy than to go over, mark it, issue, you know, something that went along with it. So here's a beautiful picture. 12:46, a minute after the bell for period 6 today. It's working. Yeah, that is beautiful. I went out with the iPad. And then just down the hall a little bit, there's Mr. Browning, one of our attendance safety personnel, and he is issuing a tardy pass to a student there, handing it to him. He puts it in the little thing he has here, and then it shoots out, and it has the consequence, you know, because it keeps track of all of that. Lunch detention is something that we've added with this. It's one of the early consequences after the warnings, lunch detention, and we have the 3 tables. There's one with students today, just so you see they're there. They are every day. The tracking, there are a few different reports that it gives us, and I just copied a few to give you a sense of what we have. This is a summary report, and it does alphabetical order, all the students, and I had to black out students' names and things, but you can see some students, there's just one instance. One on down, there are 3 instances of things that have happened. And let's see. You're closer, like there's a lunch detention at the top, a lunch detention. They all are to lunch detentions on that, but it pages in by alphabetical order and lets us know when it was assigned and when they served it. Also, this is an individual student's report. I've got the name off of the top, but like this student has had some tardies, and you see the progression from the bottom up. Signed in, well, if they signed an excuse, there's no punishment, but it still goes through the process. At a warning, and then a warning, a second warning, they kind of get 2, but it's building, and then a lunch detention, and you have the date that it was assigned and the date that it was served, kind of in that middle column. And then another lunch detention, and so we get those reports for individual students, and we can see if there are holes where they were assigned and they didn't serve it, and then we can wrap a few things together. We use half an hour after school detention, an hour after school detention, Friday evening school, which goes 2.5 hours also in the progression. There's parent contact along the way too. And this is action summary kind of for the semester to date, and when you look at the numbers on the total, it's a lot of kids, and it can be a lot of tardies. Unfortunately, in that tardy, that whole total thing, they count the sign-ins and sign-outs, which those can be excused and with valid reason in that total, so it really trumps up that. But if you look, you know, today down that column, 22 instances that were involved with the Plasto track. In the last week, you know, a bunch, and lots of kids to follow up on, and it does make it much more systematic. Not that it's perfect. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely perfect, but teachers, well, if you go to the next one, I think that'll show impact so far. I went through the halls today and did an informal survey, just because in the front office, we all believe it has had a big impact, and it seems good, but you don't always know that that's the same perception. And I went through many different PLCs. Every teacher, which probably was about 40 by the time I was through, said yes, they felt like it had a positive impact, and they really appreciated that they just got to close the door and get to teaching, and you're only letting a kid in with the pass than the time that it took in maintaining all of that. Students, they're scurrying to get to class, no doubt about it. Not as many kids in the hall in between passing periods, and we are holding them accountable this way, and we do believe that the school culture has improved as a result. That's it.
You can make that quick.
Yep.
You got a ball game to go to.
Ball game. Go Devils. Thanks. Or questions?
Any questions for Ms. Strait? All right.
Looks like the investment's well worth it.
Yeah.
You know, we're still evaluating. We're going to continue to evaluate. We like what it's done and want the same type of process if there are some glitches, and we're going to be looking for improvements in the way that it feeds over. And on our little thing, we're not getting the pictures of the students that would really improve safety, that when you pull it up, you know, it's that kid and that type of thing. But overall, yeah, we're impressed, and we'll continue with it. So,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, I believe we're down to action items, and action item number 1 is the E-rate Priority 2 Spring Hill Elementary ISDN PRI. So that's a
lot of letters.
That's a lot of language there. So,
It is.
Mrs. Schellenberg.
Thanks. We've been applying for E-rate, mostly Priority 1 services for a very long time, and our Priority 1 gives us our discounts as a corporation based on our free and reduced lunch rate, which is about 57%, and we get reimbursed for our telephone services and our internet, our wide area network. We've always been eligible for Priority 2, which basically gives us deeper discounts, and those are at individual building levels. So our highest priority, or our highest poverty schools, such as Spring Hill, Maple, Parkwood, we have been able to, or are eligible to, provide services to those individual sites. We're able to apply for them and to begin to kind of structure networks at those levels at even deeper discounts. So Spring Hill, for instance, is eligible at, let's say, a 97% discount. So what happens is the E-rate services will review the Priority 1 applications, and then when Priority 2 applications come through, they'll take the highest poverty and whatever money's left begin to distribute. So we started with this beginning the fall of last year to say, okay, we know we want to expand and look at one-to-one and kind of preparation. We wanted to look at increasing our network capacity, and the way that we needed to do that was to start looking at our Priority 2 schools and say, how can we increase our network capacity without really impacting our costs? So what we're trying to do is to kind of redesign our network on 2 levels by capturing these discounts in our schools. So what we're going to do is apply this Priority 2, create our Spring Hill, kind of recreate a network using our Spring Hill discounts. So this ISDN PRI is going to be the first step towards developing a new network similar to what we have at Jeff High, only we're going to be capturing discounts at 98%. So it's a huge savings for us, and we really haven't been ready to do that, but as we're moving with the one-to-one, now we have a director of technology, we're ready to take this next step. So that's kind of where we are. This is our first step. So.
Motion to accept.
Thank you, Ms. Satterley.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? All right. 6-0. Thank you. All right. Item number 2 is the arts contract, Scott Lang Leadership Seminar. Looks like you're still up, huh?
I am still up. One thing that's nice about, we've been a Fund for the Arts school district contributor for a very long time, and as contributors, individual contributors in the district, you can suggest or ask that your dollar contributions go back to the corporation or go back to individual schools. And we have dollars set aside as a corporation. Jeffersonville High School, as a Grammy signature school, had an opportunity to host Scott Lang, who is a premier music leadership presenter, and he has selected Jeff High to come and present not only to professionals in the field but also open up to students. So we'd like to use this opportunity to kind of celebrate Jeff High as a signature Grammy location, but also then serve as kind of get area artists into the facility as well. So we think it's a good use of the Fund for the Arts money that's here in the district.
Motion to approve. Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Ms. Budoff. Perkins. Teresa.
All of the above.
All the above. All right. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? All right. 6-0.
Great, thank you.
Perkins is fine.
Can I just
Perkins,
ask you
thank
one
you.
thing before you sit down?
Too late.
Too late. You said too late. You said Spring Hill is 51% free and reduced.
97%.
97%. Okay. Then the others, do you know what the others are? The other
I'm sorry?
three? Do you know what Maple and Parkwood are?
Maple right now is at 95%. Park would be the next one at about 92%.
Okay.
And those change each year.
Okay. I guess my point is these are all A schools.
Poverty. Yes, ma'am.
They're all poverty schools and they all received an A rating.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
That's amazing. I just think we need to pat ourselves. That's amazing. That really is.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for that opportunity.
All right. Next one is Spalding University agreement.
I brought no papers. Basically, you have gotten a copy of the contract. This is just a contract with Spalding University. It's sort of like student teaching in that they send us occupational therapists, and our occupational therapists give them clinical experiences. They don't call it student teaching, but it's the same kind of thing. We've had a lot of success with that, and we also gotten some people from them, so it's a good thing.
Okay.
I'll move to accept.
Thank you, Mr. Satterley.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. All right. Next item is the conflict of interest disclosure statements for board meetings, board members, sorry.
Mrs. Lewis.
Thank you. As you know, each year you're required to file a conflict of interest disclosure statement that sets out any relationship that you have either with a relative or financially, and to provide that to the board in a public meeting for approval. All of the disclosure statements have been attached in board docs, and at this time you could vote to approve all statements at the same time with an acknowledgement for the record and the minutes that each member abstains from voting on his or her own statement.
I'd like to move to accept that we vote in such a manner.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Perkins, thank you. Any discussion? All right. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. All right. Next one is the long-term beverage contract.
Just want you to know the IU-Michigan State game has been postponed because of lighting problems. So, no, I used up my 4.
No.
He set me up.
You did. Forced into 11.
Anyway.
Score report.
What we're asking here, let me give you a little background information. Our current Coca-Cola contract corporation-wide expired January 1st, 2013. I signed a 90-day extension which will run through April 30th, hoping that we would be able to get more dollars out of Coca-Cola. Travis and I have been working with them. I wanted $250,000 out of their marketing money, and I've been pressing them. And all they did basically was look at what we've already gotten and rearranged it. So our commissions came down, our case rebates came down, and then they were going to give us $45,000 in marketing money. That's basically it. Well, I'm asking permission now to go out and formally bid our long-term beverage agreement. It would be a 4-year agreement with an option for a renewal of another 4 years. So that's what we're asking.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kraft.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any discussion?
Yeah, do we not get to see a copy of the contract?
I'm still working on it.
Still working. Have we negotiated with Pepsi, or are we strictly sticking with Coca-Cola?
No, what we're going to do is we're going to put it out for a bid now. So it could be 7-Up, it could be, if you have Canfields down here, Pepsi, Coke. Coca-Cola doesn't come too far over the river is what I understand, so it'll be tough for them if they lose our contract. So maybe by bidding it out, I can squeeze a little more money out of them.
Dr. Deichel, just a question. What was for Coke, what was it you were asking for $250,000 for?
I found out that they have marketing money.
Marketing money,
And up
okay.
north, I was getting $250,000 for a 5-year contract, in addition to our normal commissions and our rebates. So that was a nice $250,000 over a 4 or 5 year period.
But that would not be a requirement as part of the RFP then, right? I mean,
It's going to be put in there, and I'm going to have them fill in what they think they can give us in their marketing money.
Okay.
So I have every item listed as far as if it's a 20-ounce, 12-ounce package product, and then I have what is the sales commission and then what is the rebate per case.
Okay.
So, and then at there's like 4 different sheets that they're going to have to fill out. And the last sheet is marketing money, and I want to give $2,000 a year to the Education Foundation as a contribution.
Okay.
So up north, are they coming in from Chicago? Tulsa, telling them, hey, if you cross the Illinois line, you can surely cross this. Yeah.
Well, see, it was more by county. Coke was in Porter County, where Andy was at.
Yeah.
Pepsi was in Munster, which was Lake County.
Right.
So kind of everybody in Lake County was with Pepsi, everybody in Porter County was with Coke.
The reality is that we're talking an exclusive contract. You know, we're giving them exclusive access to our employees, our students, etc. And we think that there should be a little bit more, if we're going to allow the exclusivity, there should be more in it for our school corporation. So at least it's time to go out and put up for bids and see what is the best situation for our school system.
All right. Any further questions for Dr. Daigle? All right. All in favor? All right. 6-0. All right. Next item is the Versatrans contract.
Yes, what we're trying to do in our transportation department is to update our current existing Versatrans software. We haven't had it updated for a while. We're finding out that we're not downloading the information from the student side, which is giving us bad data. And with Gary new, I am new, Karen needs a refresher, and Ken's here. Ken will get it also, and then we'll have at least one more person in transportation also be responsible for training on Versatrans so that we know the full capabilities of that system, and then we can eliminate a lot of the waste that we're seeing in our transportation department on the runs. So what we're looking at is this does not include the GPS units at this point in time. All we're looking at right now is updating the system for $19,421. The Fleet Vision software, the most accurate software that they have right now, for $8,396. Fleet Vision maintenance fees of $2,025, and then training in the amount of $9,000. They're actually going to come here for 3 or 4 days and train all day with our employees. After we know our full capabilities and how to play with the system, and then we'll blow out everything that we have in the system, redo our runs, download all the information from the student side, redo our runs at that point in time, and then we'll see exactly how many routes we can reduce. Then we'll get the GPS units. We'll come back before you and ask for GPS units.
Do we have any idea of what the timeline will be? I mean, will it be up and running by next school year? Or actually by July, probably, so kids will know their routes and...
Well, training, Gary and I sat through a GPS presentation by Synovia. I've used Synovia in the past at my prior 2 school districts. It's a sharp system. They have a lot of nice capabilities. Versatrans GPS has a lot of nice capabilities, and we're also going to look at Sprint's GPS system also, and that'll be coming up here too. So we're going to look at 3 different systems to see. My only concern with Sprint and Versatrans, I don't think we get the good coverage here in our school district. Verizon is better. Can you hear me now? Type stuff. So I think the Verizon is the better one, but Verizon does have a lot of nice things on their system with Synovia. So
I think the key factor is the Versatrans system to become more efficient with our routes. We may even need to make some adjustments yet this school year, if possible. Once we get Versatrans on board and get everyone trained, the GPS systems would be something that if we could get those ready to roll by next school year, that would probably be a more reasonable timeline.
Is there going to be an issue with dumping the student data into Versatrans?
no,
It will work?
they deal with it already.
Okay, good.
is there any level of support that's included in this as well? I mean, after training?
Yes, after the training, we have the maintenance fees of $2,025. That's it right now, and then once we get the GPS units, there'll be a level of support on that also.
Okay.
There's training in the amount of $9,000 as part of the $19,000. So we're talking $19,000 total commitment to get VersaTrans updated, get the training that we need, which is almost half of that contract. And then, as I said, we'll be able to integrate it with Power School, so that we make sure that we can really look at our runs, make sure that the buses are properly populated with our students, because we're finding that we're running a lot of buses with very few students in them. So we just need to be more efficient with our practices there.
And if we have problems, that we can always call VersaTrans, they'll help us out. And then if we need additional training, I'm sure we can always buy some more time too.
Yeah. All right. We have a motion on that already?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Remember.
Ms. Perkins, I think you want second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor? 6-0. All right. Next item is Roof Management Incorporated contract.
We have an existing contract with Roof Management as far as what their fees are to perform the necessary architectural services that we need for any of our roof projects. And in our capital projects plan, we do have a roof for Charlestown Middle School that we're going to have to put on, and also for the service center. So we're asking permission now to hire Roof Management at their standard fee that we've already established, and start going on these drawings that we need to start bidding them out. And the cost is $3,500 for the service center and $4,200 for Charlestown Middle School.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Satterlee. Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Further discussion? All in favor? 6-0. All right. Next item is Dell payments.
We've been working with Dell for a while now. If we do not pay within 20 days or 30 days of their contract or their agreement, we get zinged with a late charge. And by State Board of Accounts, we're not supposed to pay late charges. So I've been working with Dell trying to get these 3 charges that total about $70 total off of our account. Telling them, we're going to have a big order coming up. They're working with their people. Dell has now gotten very strict on late payments, so they are instituting these fees now, and they won't accept American Express. We've tried, so anyway, what we're asking permission here to do is to pay them on a hand check so that we don't incur any future charges from them. As we see these vendors not willing to work with us, we'll have to come to you one by one and ask permission to do a hand check, just so we don't get charged with a late fee.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Satterlee.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any discussion? I just had one question. Do we have the capability to pay them online rather than cut them a hand check?
They
No.
won't take it that way either.
They won't take it online. Okay.
I really like
So they're not really easy to deal with then, right?
Imagine that Dell computer won't take it online.
Yeah, that's
That just baffles
Maybe
me,
we're
yeah.
looking at the wrong computer company.
That's just baffling, right?
My headache's gone.
Really?
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dykel. All right. Discussion items. Let's see here. We have, board reports, I guess, is the next item there. Do we have any board reports? Mr. Hall? Ms. Perkins? Mr. White? Ms. Kraft?
I just have a question. When are we going to discuss how far along we're going or have gone or are continuing to go with Common Core?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'd be more than happy to bring that forward to a future meeting
Yeah.
with Common Core.
Yeah.
nothing's really changed as it relates to the expectations
Right.
by spring of 15, with currently a new assessment called Park. It should be fully Common Core no later than 15. So we're currently been transitioning, and frankly, we've been doing work with our goal clarity process where we're combining assessments that are both I-STEP, key indicators, as well as Common Core. So we're trying to, meld both of those two concepts together.
Okay.
Does that help?
Good. Yes. Well, I was just curious. I just didn't want us to put it on the back burner so far that it came by and we were caught.
Right.
That wouldn't be good either.
That's something that maybe we can bring back at a future meeting and do an updated presentation on our goal clarity process. That will help, I think.
Okay, that's all. I was curious. Thank you.
Saturday, anything?
No.
All right. Okay, next is the board planning goals and strategies. So, Dr. Mellon?
Yes, Board, just briefly, we plan to bring back at our next board meeting in March a full-fledged presentation on our strategic action plan. So tonight, I just wanted to let you know that we have our strategic planning committee has a meeting Thursday, and we're going to do what's called a peer review, where each subcommittee has done its work to put together a template, an action planning template. They're going to be shared with all the subcommittees so that we get a chance to look at all the work that the other committees have done. Make comment on it, bring it back to the original committees just to make sure we have more representation, and then the subcommittee can adjust and refine their template, and then we'll clean it up and bring it to you in March. And the goal then would be to give a full-fledged presentation and give everyone a couple of weeks to process through it, and then make sure that we can come back at the second board meeting in March and ask for approval, because that will be our blueprint for our district moving forward. So that's all I wanted to report to you tonight, is just give you a timeline.
Any questions? No. All right. Anything on policy review?
No.
Anything on budget review? Doesn't look like. Energy update.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, Mr. Leckert.
You're like stealth-like. You just moved up there without anyone knowing.
I have a card game at my house, and now you ball game. So
start your 3-minute
no, first
timer.
of all, I'd like to welcome Tony and Teresa. Well, congratulations, and welcome you guys, and the other ones that also, Jerry, congratulations to you, and
Thank
Christine will be here. I try to, yearly or every 2 years, try to give us some type of update of what's going on with our energy program. Believe it or not, we're going into May, going to our 8th year of the program. It's kind of hard for me to believe. I've been doing it for 8 years. But the information I'm going to be giving you tonight will be just up to the December of this year. You can go next one. As you can see, we are at a nice little hefty amount of $4,717,000. Now, it says all on use, 25% on usage. It's really called cost avoidance. That's what we've managed to not spend on energy. That's not money we have in our coffers, so to speak, but it'd be nice if we did. But if we were not doing this energy program, that money would be out of our coffers. Let me go to the next one. As you can see, it kind of breaks it down there in a pie-shaped form where, if we didn't have it, that amount of money. So it's about approximately 25% savings, which to me is just absolutely huge for sure. I'm going to go fast for you. There's a couple of things I want to kind of hit on, so you go to the next one, Renee, please. Besides monetary, sometimes I like to talk about some of the things we do just for the betterment of the schools, what I would call just our accomplishments, so to speak. One of the things is Energy Star. One thing we had never done this prior to my coming around. I think we're on our 4th year of Energy Star. One thing people say, well, what exactly does all that mean? What is Energy Star? What it basically means is if you're 50%, if your school qualifies as 50%, it indicates it's based on all the buildings of similar size in the United States. So 50% would be average. When you get 75% or better, you qualify as an Energy Star school. As you can see, we have 18 buildings that have qualified out of our, I think it's 26 we have approximately, count administration and school buildings both. out of the 18, 13 of the 18 have qualified or have been a 90% efficiency. So we're very, very proud of that fact. And there's a lot of times when some of the vendors come over, they're just shocked by as many of the buildings we have that actually qualified. Sometimes I know a lot of people I deal with are over in Kentucky. You know, if they have 1 or 2 buildings, they're just elated that they can do that much. So that's something we're very, very proud of, our Energy Star schools. Besides Energy Star, I wanted to mention this fact too, is some of the incentive money that we have been receiving, especially over our last couple of renovations that we have. We go out with either Duke, Vectren, and then another program they have now. It's called Energizing Indiana, which is basically Duke and Vectren and all the rest of the utility companies in the state put money into it. Well, the money that we receive back by going out, and trying to qualify and putting all what I'm trying to say here, putting I'm not saying it right here. I'm going to get it. It'll come out. But anyway, we get money back for the retrofitting. So that amount of money was about $100,000 we received. And we went all the way back to Jeff High time, believe it or not, just because we found out, and that was like 4 years ago, and I wouldn't thought we were going to get another cent out of them for that. But some way or another, we qualified for our chillers there. So we got over $100,000 back this last year. With that $100,000, Tom, Mr. Dykel was kind enough to let us keep it in our coffers, and we turned around and we retrofitted 3 schools with more efficient lighting. What I mean by that is they have T8 and T12 bulbs. Well, T12 no longer can be made, so we had to do something. That money was going to come out, somewhere in our budget. Thank goodness we did have that amount of money. So we're just about with 2 schools remaining. With the money I think we're going to get back on a couple more retrofits, we will be able to take care of those final two schools. So that's something else we're real excited about. I'm not going to say a whole lot about all this. You guys can read it. But the one part that I do want to mention is under success factors is a data analysis. And that's me. One thing that you often find out if I wouldn't be around is quite often you look at bills and they come up to the administration building. The girls do an outstanding job of looking at everything, but most of the time they just pay it and go on. Well, with this program, you have in all the data you have in an 8-year period of time, you can see very often when something is kind of out of sorts. We have a 25,000 kilowatt increase. What happened? Or water increase, this, that, and other. That's one of the things that I do on a constant basis is monitor every one of our bills that come in and out, and we either try to get money back or we watch to see what the problem is within the school. We might have a leak of some sort like that, or I also go to the utility companies, and sometimes I can get money back from a leak or something like that. So that's mounted up to over $200,000 in my 8 years. I've been keeping track of that over the years. Anytime you like to see some of this data, I'd be more than glad to show it to you. But it's amazing to me that I just know that if somebody's not keeping an eye on it, it wouldn't be there back in with us here at Greater Clark. This is a very quick, just a graph of what it cost us initially back in year 1. And that's in thousands of dollars. So it did initially cost us, and I wasn't any part of that. That was the board that paid that amount of money, and you can see it's in excess of $1 million. But as you can see, over the years that has paid off, and as the years go on, it's smaller and smaller amount of money invested for the money that we do get back. And as it goes out, our projected savings over our 10-year period, we should be in the neighborhood of, as we're going right now, $5.4 million around that area. And then finally, this is kind of just like the environmental impact, and you can see that through our savings that those statistics there, that what we've done for our environment, which is that's a great thing too. So, and then finally, do you have any questions about the things I talked about, or any questions about our energy program?
You want to come over to my house and do a review?
I know, 25% sounds large to me sometimes. It's just amazing. But I think what it came down to, Jerry, is that so often in the past, when nobody keeps an eye on things, just like at your house, when nobody keeps an eye on it, it runs all the time and does its thing. bills can get out of shape, and if somebody is watching it and we're trying to control it, it can be saved, so.
Great, thank you.
We just say thank you so much for what you do. We're very lucky to have you.
And we appreciate your emails too, constantly. I like the data, so.
We also appreciate you taking the blame for all the thermostats that are below whatever they're supposed to be, so, because I know you get the blame for that, so, anyway. Yeah.
Cold.
All right, thank you guys. All right, I guess the next item is fund monitoring. Dr. Deichel?
I just want you to know, when I first came here, I thought I was going to have a lot of fun on energy, reducing energy costs, and when I met with Steve and Gus, and they told me all the things that they were doing, I really was deflated. I said, you guys are doing everything, and Steve and I were walking out of his building, and I said, I would really think I've died and went to heaven if I saw a building that had waterless urinals. He says, go right in our bathroom, and you'll see them right there. So I have now seen everything that I needed to see. So just want to let you know. What you have before you now is the first month. What we did was we compressed it, so all you're seeing now in the actual column is January. We do not have our approved budget yet for 2013. We've been notified by the DLGF that they are starting to look at Clark County. So hopefully by the very end of February, beginning of March, we should see what our new budget is. So some of the revenue numbers will change based on that. We've made adjustments. When you look at the first column, it says actual on top, and then it says projected under the expenditures. I forgot to change it to actual. But when you see the second column that doesn't have a heading to it, that's the cumulative summary for the year, because what we're doing is we're projecting it out for each of the various months, and then we'll see how close we are. On the far right-hand side, you'll see how we have our 2013, it says approved total budget on the expenditures, but we don't have that yet. That's what I was saying. So we're projecting right now a deficit of about $2.2 million, and if we need it by the end of the year, we'll take it out of the rainy day fund. We'll come before you and ask permission again to use the rainy day fund. We're back up to over $3 million in that. We've adjusted the expenditures for August, September, October, November, and December for the teachers that are retiring, the staff members. So that's already been adjusted in 11-100, 11-200, 11-300 account numbers. Up on the revenue side, we've already taken out the sale of the property that we're getting back. So we reduced our revenue to $187.5. We didn't really put in the money from the impact for River Ridge. We were supposed to get about $750,000 last year. Hasn't come through. They're reevaluating excuse me, our 3-year plan. I don't know if we're going to get it this year. If we do, it'll be, hey, great, that's great. Okay, so that's it on the general fund. So we still are looking at about a $2.2 million deficit, even with the cuts, because we're not going to get the full value of those cuts this year. We'll only see it from August through December. So just to let you know, next year we'll see the full value. Okay, you want to go to debt service? When you look at debt service again, the 2013 revenues are what we advertise. It's not been approved. We've done some of our bond payments. You could see that, the $110,000 interest on bonds that we've paid, building principal for our bond issues, $800,000, and then the interest on those. So that was the only activity. So next month we won't show you debt service or pension debt because there's really no activity until June again. So that'll be it. Okay, next one. Pension debt. We've made our payment there of $350,000 plus the bond interest of $332,000. That's done in January. So we have one more payment to do before the end of the year. That'll be done in July. So that's it there. Go ahead. Capital projects. See, we're at $13,957,000 is what we think we're going to get our revenue. That's what we advertise. We're going to be closer to around $7 million, $8 million. We always build it higher than what we anticipate. So we're actually going to have to cut our expenditures on the bottom, on the expenditure side, because we're showing $12,667,000. So we're going to have to cut that too. So we'll show you this every month just to let you know where that is. Okay. Transportation Operating Fund, again, built for $5.6 million. It'll be closer to about $3.5 million. We've already borrowed money for tax anticipation warrants, $1.85 million. We're going to have to cut some of our expenditures there also, because that's a little bit too high. We should be around $4 million, and we should end up having a cash balance I'm projecting of about $250,000 by the end of the year in transportation operating. Okay. And then bus replacement, we budgeted $2,225,000. We know that's way too high. It should be closer to about $1.1 million, $1.2 million. So we'll have to adjust our expenditures on that one also. And that's really it. That's kind of where we're at. Oh, and then we also have the rainy day fund. So we're at $2,685,000. I forgot we took out that $500,000. So we're at $2,685,000. So if we do need the full $2.2 million, we'll be down to about $400,000 in the rainy day fund. But our goal in 14 is to get it back up to 5% of our total appropriation. So that should be around $5 million. And then our general fund cash balance should be around 8%. So that should be about another $5 million. So hopefully by the end of 2014, we'll be back in the black and looking real good. So that's it on the presentation. Any questions? No?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, under student achievement, we have the balanced calendar intercession presentation.
Well, first of all, Board, this is big. This is big for our school system. The balanced calendar in itself is going to be new next year. And the key to a balanced calendar is that you still have 180 school days, but they're spread out over more calendar days. And so you end up with 2 weeks between every 9-week grading period. So the benefit academically is that one of those 2 weeks we take mornings, we provide academic services to students who need it from 8 o'clock until noon approximately. The whole idea is that we get about 20 hours of additional instruction for students who need it, not only in the fall, but do it again in the spring. So there's about 40 more hours of instruction that kids would not have under the existing calendar. So let's go ahead. We've had a committee that was formed, and all of my colleagues to the left were part of it. Robert from Food Service, Mr. Hobgood from Facilities, Mr. Denton sat in on one of our last meetings that we had. So we've had a group of people that helped to put all this together because there's a lot to organize. Because we want to talk to you about the intercessions, which are those 1-week periods between the each marking period. So what we're going to show you are all of these factors as we go through this presentation, but we try to consider every possible aspect to implement this. First of all, in terms of locations, we want to recommend that we have these at Charlestown High School, Jeffersonville High School, and New Washington Middle High. The reason is because we want to reduce our costs. If we were to try to keep all of our buildings open for that week, that's just a lot more expenditures, and we've just talked about how we worked hard to save money. So we want to bring people to these 3 locations, all Jeffersonville area students to Jeff High, Charlestown students to Charlestown High, New Washington Middle High to those students to that location. Intercession 1 would be October 7th through the 11th, and Intercession 2 would be March 24th through 28th. So we go through a 9-week grading period, and the very next week we're into these intercessions. Keep in mind that if families want to take a vacation, they still can the second week of that intercession. So some students could have 2 weeks off. Other students may have only a week off. But families now have the opportunity under the new balanced calendar to maybe take an October vacation, which maybe they've not had that opportunity to do before. If you go, and that's okay. If you go back to the times, 8 to 12:15 for students, staff 7:30 to 12:30. Now students, we went to 4 hours and 15 minutes because, thanks to Robert, we can feed these students, both breakfast and lunch. But in order to feed them, we need to extend our day just slightly in order to have a rotation where we could feed them, especially at Jeff High. So food service, Robert came on board, and as Robert does, he does a great job, and he said, hey, we can do this, and in fact, it's beneficial to our food service program to provide this to students. So we would serve breakfast in classrooms to elementary students and in the cafeteria to secondary students at each of those locations. We'd also serve lunch. Again, elementary students may be served in the classroom, or we would work on a rotation where we're doing it through the cafeterias. Teachers would work 7:30 to 12:30. They will assist as needed with supervision, and we're going to maintain pupil-to-teacher ratios at 15 to 1. We're projecting the potential of serving approximately 20% of our students in these intersections. So 2,000 students across our school corporation will be served. So we need enough teachers that we could afford to have a 15 to 1 ratio, because we're working with students who are in great need of that level of support. Transportation. Thanks to our transportation department, we'll be providing transportation. We'll have home pickups at both Charlestown and New Washington homes. So those students who need that intervention service, they'd be picked up at their homes and brought to the high schools. In Jeffersonville, we want to bring them to the elementary school hubs and then transport them via bus from their elementary school to Jeff High. We also would like to have a paraprofessional at each of those elementary schools to help supervise students before they get onto the bus. They would join those students or on the bus. They would take them to Jeff High, and they would provide some support at those schools, and then also jump back on the bus with those students back to their Jeff hub, their school hub, and make sure all those students are picked up by parents. Students would be selected based upon our impact program. We've talked about Tier 2 and Tier 3 students. These are students that need intervention. We would build this into their plans. If you remember, board, we talked about developing a plan for students to how we're going to intervene. We would build this into their written plan, that parents would know that we believe your son or daughter needs this level of intervention. We expect them to attend this intercession. And they'd be a great risk if they chose not to participate. They have to understand that if they have to get to grade level. You know, our main focus is reading. And if they don't participate in these interventions, and if they're not getting to grade level, then they're at greater risk of being retained by us at the end of a school year. So if a student could have taken advantage of 40 hours of extra instruction and chose not to me, the parent is putting that student in a difficult position to be successful and be able to move forward to the next grade level. But we'd be talking to the parents about that right at the beginning of the school year as soon as we identified their students in need. Communities and schools will serve as our contracted resource for managing our intercession staffing needs. Now, this is something we're still in the process of discussing with our Teachers Association. But what we're basically saying is that we would like to pay our teachers at approximately a $35 an hour rate. The reason we figured that is we're trying to, again, keep that 15 to 1 ratio, thinking about 2,000 students. We'll need about 133 teachers. Financially, there's the money that's going to be used to pay for this is coming out of Title I dollars predominantly, but we can only pay for that staff from Title I buildings. So students from Title I buildings and the staff from Title I buildings, we can use Title I monies to pay for the staff during the intercessions. The additional money has to come out of summer school funds. And we're getting confirmation from the state because a lot of districts around the state are doing these intercessions, and we believe that we need to be able to use some summer school dollars or remediation dollars to pay for the staffing costs. The $35 an hour is the middle factor in terms of the low cost is $23 an hour for our teachers, and the high is about $56 or $58 an hour. So we chose the $35 figure as a median. Again, trying to be fair to staff, but also know that we have to pay for 133 teachers to keep those ratios low. The program will be reviewed in the early spring of 14 for changes or modifications for the 14-15 school year. So this is how we'd like to set up. We'd like to see how it works. But in the spring of next year, we'll review it and see if it's effective or not. I've mentioned the Title I dollars being used. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about staffing costs. So we're talking using Title I dollars to pay for staffing. It'll pay for most of our staffing costs. The summer school dollars we would need to pay for the balance. So we're not digging deeper into the general fund in order to make all this happen. That's the goal. We're using Title I monies and summer school remediation monies that we would receive. We'd have expectations. Again, the students would be expected to attend. And they would, it'd be part of a written plan that we'd be building with the parents, so the parents are part of that process, and parents would need to know that if they don't attend this, then their children are going to be in need of more intense intervention during the regular year and could be at risk of being retained. We have to stop allowing kids to be able to move forward when they don't have the skills necessary to be successful at the next grade level. And the hope is that with all of our efforts through impact, through the extra intervention time we're providing in the school year, that will be the case. The other great thing about this is we want to provide our teachers and community with an opportunity to provide enrichment opportunities beyond just the kids who need the Tier 2 and 3 support. So what we'd like to do is open it up to our teachers to say, would you like to provide a physics camp or a drama camp? Or it could be an athletic camp, a band camp. And the teachers would design a proposal that they would have to bring forward to us that we'd have to approve, but it would be a self-sustaining program. The parents would have to pay for that. These opportunities would not occur during the morning hours, which would fall in conflict with the academic support piece. We also want to make sure that if I need some extra support in my reading, but I love band, then I could participate in that enrichment opportunity after the morning intersession time was over. It's possible that a student would jump on a bus in the morning, go to their high school location, participate in academic support, be part of some kind of a camp environment in the afternoon, and then communities and schools, we'll talk about that more here in a minute. Why don't we go ahead and move forward? Communities and schools is still going to be providing services during that week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So parents could have their students take the bus in the morning. They'd get a breakfast. They'd be academically supported. They would get a lunch. They'd be involved in enrichment opportunities offered by our teachers or coaches. Have communities and schools there as a support, and parents could pick them up sometime before 6 o'clock. So during that whole week of intersession, we feel that we've tried to take into all accounts what we could do to help our families during that time frame. That is our plan of attack moving forward, and our thought was for tonight, we just wanted to present all this information to you, give you an opportunity to process through it. We have met a number of times as a committee where there's more discussion that needs to take place with our Teachers Association related to that staffing piece, and that'll happen next week. So our hope is that we could bring this back to you for your approval at the first board meeting in March. But whatever questions you have, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
What grade levels are we talking about?
K through 12.
K-12. So when you've got those little kiddos at these three high schools, are we going to make some accommodations for them?
Yes, we've talked about, for example, tables as opposed to desks.
Okay.
You know, we know that there's going to be a need to potentially do some movement of equipment, but again, it's either. Oh, I have to tell you this too. This is important. In terms of administrative supervision, what we've done is we've built it in so that all of our administrators are on contract. we're building a schedule for them in which there'll be supervision, elementary, middle, and high school principals at each of these three locations every day of the intersession. So between our high school principals and assistant principals and our middle school principal and middle school assistant principal and our elementary principals in that area, we've set up a schedule so throughout those 5 days of intersession, we will have an elementary, middle, and high school administrator at each location every day. And it's part of their contract. So there's no additional cost to us.
Will there be security at the building?
We'll follow the same security procedures that we do during the regular school year in terms of access through the A-phone system. In terms of the SROs and so on, we'll have to talk a little bit about that, but I don't think that will be an issue moving forward. Mr. Hare, do you think? Mm-hmm. We're going to have those para supports coming out of the Jeff District, out of those transportation hubs that will be helping to monitor kids, and we'll make the accommodations we need to make sure that everyone. Now, from a teacher perspective, there's some concern about, whether it's an elementary teacher, they're used to their classroom, and now they've got to move into this other classroom. We know it's not going to be perfect. We know there's no perfect solution, because the other thing is if you try to put it all in individual buildings, then you have all those cost factors incurred there, plus the buildings are open. You're not making any savings from an energy perspective. So we debated all of this as a committee and felt this was the best option now as a first go-around. But we'll make the adjustments and accommodations that we need to make sure kids are safe and make sure that the teachers and staff are accommodated in terms of their equipment needs. Yes?
You must not underestimate the quality of our people here. Mm-hmm. We have had teachers with little push carts that have taught classes and done a beautiful job. Mm-hmm. So they're very innovative and they're very talented. They'll get it done.
I think that as I've been around to all of our buildings and I see our teachers, our administrators, our staff, and how much they care about our kids, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show that we care a great deal about our children. We want to go above and beyond. We have teachers and administrators and staff members that are willing to step forward. We need to compensate those people fairly, but we also need to be sensitive to the budget and make sure that we're providing, we're paying for this without adding dollars to our general fund. So I feel like we've really worked hard at looking at how are we going to do this and taking everything into account. And we know that we're going to have to be prepared, all hands on deck, that first intersession, just to make sure that everyone's accommodated properly. But I believe we've got people that care about kids, and they're going to do great things during those 20 hours of instruction. So I agree with you, Mrs. Kraft.
What will the curriculum look like? I mean, I know there's going to be a concentration on literacy in the elementary grades, but when you get into the high school grades, will it be subject specific, or will it still be? I mean, if I'm a junior and I'm going, what am I going to get for a week?
At the high school level, our focus is going to be on two things. Number one, and of course assessment, remediation, to make sure our students who need to pass that Algebra 1 exam and that English 10 exam, make sure they pass that. So that's going to be a focus at the high school level, as well as credit recovery. We have a lot of students who need that extra time and support in order to get involved in a credit recovery situation. So that will be the curriculum focus at the high school level, and at K through 8 it will be that reading, but there will also be a behavioral component too that we want to provide support to for those students with behavioral needs that we've identified through our impact program. And the one thing we want to do with our teachers, and if I misspeak or anything, let us know, but our goal here is we're not recreating something brand new that we want to teach kids. what we're doing is these are things that we've been teaching our students all along, but they need more time on that. They need more attention. So we don't want our teachers to have to feel like they have to go out and produce this brand new curriculum. What we want them to do is know that they're going to have these kids with these needs, academic needs, and we want to structure our classrooms with that in mind. So I may have a classroom of students that have vocabulary issues that need to be enhanced. So all 20 hours are going to be vocabulary based.
How will the teachers know that?
We're going to have to work as we identify our students, and we structure that with our teachers. We'll have to let them know. But again, we're not going to throw something at them that they have not already been working on a daily basis, throughout their regular routine. So will they have different kids with different needs? I'm not here to say it's going to be easy, but we don't want them to have to feel like they've got to create this brand new separate curriculum. That's not what it's about. It's really spending time on facilitating instruction to meet the students' needs in their classroom during those 20 hours. Did I answer that okay, or?
I had a couple of questions as well. So we expect that the March session will look better than the October session, since the October session will be the first one. So I guess we're going to have some, I don't want to call it a workshop, but discussion sessions following the October to say what went well, what didn't go well, and then carry those lessons into March. My next question is, will students be able to attend another district? Let's say during that week it's a child care issue where I'm going to go stay with my cousins in Charlestown, and it might be easier for me to send them to Charlestown versus send them all the way back down to Jeff. So just something to consider.
Hey, we want to accommodate our people, so if that's what it takes, then that's what we'll make happen. We just need to communicate. Keep in mind that this turnaround time is going to be fairly quick, because we're going to go from a 9-week grading period, and the next week, now all of a sudden we're into this new mode of operation. So we just need to be able to have we're all just going to have to be adaptable. The other great thing about educators is we're adaptable. Mm-hmm. We take what's thrown at us and we adjust and we adapt, and I'm sure our people will do it. So, but anyway, as soon as we identify through our impact process that students need this intervention, they need to be involved, then we need to be building class lists, we need to be identifying staff members, and we need to, if one student says, hey, I'm going to be this week staying in another area, they need to communicate that with us, and we'll do everything in our power to accommodate them.
And all of the athletic programs will know about this. I'm sure they're going to have, some of them will be in practice sessions, and so you're going to have kids going to intersessions in the mornings when they may be missing a practice.
All of our athletes will know that there's going to be no practices, school-based practices, prior to 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And I think we pretty much discussed. I'm not sure if we set a specific time, but in the morning there will be absolutely no school-based athletic practices. If they want to practice let's say we set it at 1. They can practice at 1, or they can practice at 2, or they can practice at 3. But again, we don't want anything to compete with the academic services that we need to provide students in the morning. Mm-hmm. So that'll be communicated around our district to all of our administrators. Okay. Good question.
I had a question about the transportation. You're going to have all the students are going to have to go to the middle or elementary schools and then be bused. In some of the areas, say downtown, where there's a lot of poverty, or you think it's going to be an issue for those kids that would normally have ridden a bus to an elementary school, that maybe parents are single parents or don't have a car and things, a little concerned about getting them there?
Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate concern. And here's the thing, that our transportation budget is already in difficult shape. Now we're going to do a lot of things to make it more efficient, but what we were trying to do is say, well, how can we be as reasonable as we can with transportation? And we thought that if we can have the parents get the students to the elementary, then we'll take it from there. I'm sure that we'll have some issues with some parents that will say, hey, I can't get that done.
Yeah, I understand the premise and what you're trying to do. I'm just curious what percentage of students are going to have a problem with that.
I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to track that as we go through this process, and we'll have to track the number of students who we wanted to participate and who could not.
And what their reason was.
Yeah, and because of transportation, and we'll have to track that. And then if we have to make adjustments, then we'll have to make adjustments. And again, we would review after our fall intersession sort of where we are and make whatever adjustments we could for that spring. And if transportation's one of those, then we'll have to look at it. It's a good point.
I kind of share Teresa's concern about, if I've got a kindergartner, suddenly having to ship them up to Jeff High might be a little scary, I'm afraid. So,
well, we're going to have to be very. We agree. We're going to have to be very welcoming. It's going to have to be like a field trip. It's going to have to be like, wow, this is new, this is different, this is exciting. Glad to have you here. We're going to have to be just very warm and fuzzy with those students, because it will be uncomfortable initially. And so, as I said, we're just going to have people that, from our administrators and our staff and our teachers, we're going to have to really. I've been a part of this kind of concept before, not to this magnitude, but I've seen how that works, where you've had to bring elementary students into a high school environment, and you've had to adjust it out in terms of tables instead of desks. And so I've been through this before at a smaller scale, and it worked okay, but you just really had to be sensitive to our students, because it can be a scary experience for our kids.
Sure.
It's a good point.
They've done that in Clarksville, and it worked. And they were concerned about putting the kindergarten in the middle school. That it worked. They had a different spot. If you just had a certain place in the building where those children were, then they wouldn't be with the other kids anyway that much. Now, on my school bus in Clarksville, I have 5, 6, 7, and 8 on one bus, which has been a little hairy this year, let's just say. It's very different when you incorporate a 5th grader with an 8th grader. So, but we adjust, as you said.
There's a lot here to digest. Again, our team here has done a tremendous job of putting a plan together, to trying to consider every possible aspect and element, but there's probably something more to it. Please take your time, process through, let me know what questions or concerns you have, and we'll make whatever adjustments we need to make to bring it forward. We do believe we'd like to be able to have you be able to take action on this early in March, so we can really, begin the planning phases, so we're ready to go for next year. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We don't have any public comments.
One more presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who did I miss? Oh, the impact. I'm sorry, Amy.
Yep. This is just an update on our impact program, which is really feeding into our balanced calendar. We spent January with our first administration of our STAR assessment. If you remember, we adopted our STAR assessment as a way to give us a little bit stronger diagnostic information about our students, how they were performing in reading and math. And in the first 3 weeks of January, we administered over 9,000 assessments between really our grades K through 10. The assessment program is available K through 12, and actually when we begin next school year, we'll be testing K through 12. But for our first round here, we did K through 10. If you go to the next slide, I just want to share with you just kind of an overall, in terms of benchmark, performance results that we have that align from a corporation perspective for grades 3 through 8, how a kind of a projection of performance on I-STEP. This assessment program gives us kind of an indicator on how we're looking in terms of preparation for these students' performance on as aligned to Indiana I-STEP. And for reading, we're at this point in time about a 78%. We are in the process right now, because we are part of the state pilot, of testing for acuity. Our acuity window closes on Friday, so we're very anxious to be able to compare the results between this and acuity, because we've been part of the acuity pilot for a while, and we have pretty good alignment indicators. So our teachers are really anxious in terms of looking at both of these pieces of data. I cannot say enough about our principals and our teacher leaders in terms of the way they've embraced this program, and just are really kind of owning the kids' performance and kids, just getting them in, getting them assessed, and really looking strategically at how to serve kids that are not at mastery. So if you looked at this report right now in reading, it's showing in these grade levels that as a district we've got about 22% of our kids that are not at target on this at this particular point. For mathematics, we're showing a little better performance. A total of 83% of our kids at this point are showing us on target to pass I-STEP, which leaves us about 17% who are not ready at this particular point to show proficiency on I-STEP. What this means is those kids that were not showing proficiency, we've identified plans and developed plans. Tier 2 plans were developed and sent home for signatures as part of our impact program. Tier 3 conferences were held. Those are kids who were significantly far away from grade level. Tier 2 kids are a little bit closer to grade level, but maybe just a little bit off. These kids who are being served in Tier 2 and Tier 3 are getting additional tutoring. If they're in the middle school or high school, they might be in a lab setting. In the elementary, they might be getting additional tutoring, usually 30 to 45 minutes extra. The progress monitoring is being done through this STAR assessment. So every 2 weeks, they're going into the computer lab, taking the assessment again, and so we're getting trend line data where we're able to follow these kids, and we'll be able to come back to you and, they recommend actually after like 3 progress monitoring sessions where we can come back to you and show that growth data. Our next major screening with this particular product will be in May, and at that point we'll be able to show you both our acuity and our STAR data and kind of show you where we are along both sides. Overall, if you just kind of look at our first round of universal screening, 1,863 students out of our 10,370 at this point are being supported at Tier 2 or Tier 3, which at this point is about 18%. When you think about RTI, or response to intervention or response to instruction, we think about an 80-20. 80% of our kids, we're trying to serve about 20. For our district right now, we probably should be serving about 25% of our kids because we're not exactly right at an 80-20 gap. So we look at probably when we start next year, we'll probably be serving more like 23% of our kids when we test all of our kids right away. But for our mid-year implementation, our first round, for us to actually have plans out for 18% of our kids, we're pretty pleased. And I got to tell you, our teachers, every building, high schools, they've done a great job, really have. And Ann's going to share the behavioral side.
Actually, Amy took all the time, so I'm going to speak really brief. No, unfortunately, there's not a test for behavior. What we have to do is look at what data we do have, and with that, we look at office discipline referrals. And really, office discipline referrals are the main thing we look at because everything else falls under that. Your office discipline referrals lead you into in-school suspensions or out-of-school suspensions, alternatives to suspensions, or then we also look at that student who's chronically in trouble and the teacher's handling it, but it's just become disruptive in the classroom. Go to the next slide, you'll see we're doing okay. If you look at 87% of our kids really don't have any office discipline referrals. 11% have 1 to 3. So we're really looking at only right now, using that standard, only about 2% of our kids who need some kind of intervention. Now that doesn't quite go with our pyramid, but I think we're also just a little newer at this game. We don't have that set test to say this is how it's going to be and these are the 20% of the kids that we need to work with. Instead, we've got to kind of look at how we do it and what we're doing, and we're kind of taking our time to make sure that we're getting the kids that need the service. Right now, we have 210 kids who are going to be in a Tier 2 intervention, and if you remember from our presentations before, a Tier 2 intervention is something that's readily available in the school, this kind of preset that kids can fit into. So you might set up a system of having important adults that the kid can check in with in the morning and at the end of the day. And they take a checklist with them to each class to kind of check off were they doing what they needed to do. Just in a few cases that I can think of right now, we have kids who've made wonderful progress just using that method. We've reduced their office referrals. We have a group of kids, though, that are kind of our high flyers, and they're probably more than 60 right now, but we kind of took the approach, if you're not sure, try a Tier 2 first, and then go to Tier 3, because when we go to Tier 3, we're talking about really doing an assessment with a child in terms of their functional behavior, and trying to figure out what is the behavior this child has, what is he getting out of it? You know, behavior always has a purpose, and we all know that. You know, we behave in order to get something. Sometimes we behave a certain way to avoid something. Sometimes we behave a certain way to get something. So we have to figure out what kids are getting out of that behavior, and we do it through a functional assessment. Then from there, we'll be sitting down with parents and writing a plan. Both steps there take parent permission, though, because we're intervening much more strongly with these kids. So that's kind of where we are with it. Again, we're a little bit more of a novice. Some of our buildings, we're pretty sophisticated in this area over the last couple of years. We have a few that are a little bit behind that, but they're working hard and they're really making progress. So we should see some good things.
Great. Well, thank you. Good update.
I have a comment. I know this was about those struggling kids, but kudos to those 1,000 kids who got Pass Plus on that Math Start exam. I'm excited about that for sure.
And they'll be started tonight after those.
Right.
Okay, I think now we can move to public comments. I don't think we have any, right? No. All right. Board comments, Mr. Hall.
I just want to say I really appreciate the effort. I think we have great things going on in Greater Clark, and I've been real impressed with, what is this, third meeting, fourth? But I think we're moving in the right direction. I think Dr. Mellon is showing great leadership. Let's keep it up, keep rolling.
Ditto.
That's pretty much the same thing. Tony got it there.
I just wish the media was here so they could write all that down.
I'll say the same thing. I really appreciate the communication so we can come in here and vote on stuff and not have to debate it for a half hour. It's really worthwhile.
Yeah, again, thanks to Dr. Mellon and the entire staff. I mean, it continues to look better and better. And, you know, the student achievement, I always like that part because then it feels like all the rest of this, you know, makes a difference. I mean, this is ultimately what we're trying to get to anyway, and so everything else is supporting. So I appreciate those updates very much. Dr. Mellon?
Now, I just again thank my team. I think you see as you go through this meeting, all the work that goes into this, and we've got a great leadership team here, and I appreciate that very much. And we'll keep moving in the right direction to help kids. So thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Satterley?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Good night.